I just want to share today that we can come out on top with God by letting go of our own ways of doing things and by letting go of our own pursuits. Remember when Abraham's servants and Lot's servants were fighting with each other? And so Abraham said to Lot, look, we're brothers, so that we don't fight, let's go our separate ways. And even though Abraham had the promise that he was going to be the heir of the world, he let Lot make the choice first of which land he would choose. And when Lot looked in one direction and he saw that it was good land, he chose that land. And Abraham let Lot choose the best land. But all these years later, who really has inherited the earth in a sense? Is it Abraham or is it Lot? I think Abraham didn't miss out on inheriting the promise, even though he gave the best option to Lot. And another example is God promised Abraham Isaac, but one day God asked Abraham to offer Isaac, whom he loved, to offer him up. And Abraham was willing to do that because he believed that God could raise Isaac from the dead. And just when Abraham was about to do it, the angel of the Lord said to Abraham, don't hurt your son. Now I've seen that you won't withhold anything from me. And then the promise to Abraham was multiplied. God said that in multiplying, I will multiply you. In blessing, I will bless you. So sometimes if we're willing to give up even something that we believe God has promised us, something He's really destined us to, but we're willing to lay it down if we feel He's asking us to. Maybe He wants us to go in a different route that we weren't thinking at first. Maybe He wants us to do something that if we relied on our own understanding, it isn't what we would choose to do. But when you do it God's way, you're always going to come out on top. I remember years ago, I was invited to take over a youth group, and I was still young, and I thought, this is wonderful. I could imagine how I could see some of my dreams fulfilled through taking on this position. But deep down inside, I just didn't feel quite right about it. And I ran the youth group for a little while, and God blessed it, it grew. But deep down there was still a certain dissatisfaction despite the blessing. And so eventually I asked to be released from that responsibility, and someone else was happy to take it on, and they did a good job. But one day, when I least expected it, God spoke to me and He told me to do something. And when I took that step of faith, it was just wonderful how God opened doors. It's like I gave up one youth group, but I inherited the opportunity to speak to 100 youth groups. And as I stepped out in faith and had to depend on God for everything, even finances at that time, I remember feeling a deeper sense of satisfaction. I had a deeper joy. It's not like I wasn't serving God before, I was. But now that I was hearing specifically from God and stepping out in faith, laying down my own understanding and doing what He asked me to do, there was just a much greater joy and satisfaction, and the blessing was so much greater. But you know, even if you don't see the greater blessing immediately, you can entrust your heart's desire to God. Even His promises, you can trust that to God. And in the long run, when you do things His way, you won't miss out at all. It says in the Psalms, no good thing will He withhold from those whose heart is perfect with Him.